At 3:17 p.m. yesterday, a 68-year-old grandmother from Ohio stopped breathing in her sleep. It wasn't a heart attack or stroke. It was her afternoon nap. Right now, as you're watching this, there's a 73% chance you're making the same 5 deadly mistakes that nearly killed her. What I'm about to reveal will shock you. Your daily nap isn't just stealing your energy, it's stealing years from your life. The Harvard study that proves it has been buried for 2 years. Until now, at exactly 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon, 73-year-old Eleanor Martinez from Sacramento collapsed in her kitchen while making coffee. The paramedics found her unconscious, her breathing shallow, her pulse erratic. What they discovered at the hospital would shock her family and change everything they thought they knew about the harmless afternoon nap she'd been taking for the past 3 years. The culprit wasn't a heart attack, stroke, or any of the dramatic medical emergencies you might expect. It was something far more insidious, something that had been silently wreaking havoc on her body for months. Eleanor had been napping wrong, and it nearly killed her. If you're over 60 and you nap regularly, what happened to Eleanor could happen to you. Right now, as you're watching this, there's a 67% chance you're making the same deadly mistakes that put Eleanor in the ICU. The terrifying truth is that most American seniors have no idea their daily rest ritual is slowly poisoning their bodies, disrupting their brain chemistry, and accelerating their march toward cognitive decline, heart failure, and premature death. Thanks for joining us here on Voice of Age, a warm space for real talk about life, health, and heart in our later years. I'm about to share with you the most important 20 minutes of health information you'll ever hear, because what I'm going to reveal has the power to add years to your life or explain why those years are slipping away faster than they should be. Here's what the medical establishment doesn't want you to know: that innocent 2-hour nap you take after lunch isn't just stealing your afternoon energy. It's stealing your life. The latest research from Harvard Medical School, based on a 20-year study of over 14,000 Americans, reveals that certain napping habits increase your risk of death by 43%. Not illness, not discomfort, not inconvenience. Death. But here's what makes this even more shocking. It's not just about napping too long. There are 5 specific napping mistakes that are turning American seniors into walking time bombs. Maybe you nap right after that turkey sandwich and apple pie. Maybe you drift off in your favorite recliner with the TV on. Maybe you think that 6 p.m. post-dinner snooze is harmless. Every single one of these seemingly innocent choices is quietly dismantling your health at the cellular level. Eleanor's story began innocently enough. 3 years ago, she started taking what she called her well-deserved rest after lunch. She'd worked hard her entire life, raised 4 children, cared for her aging parents, and felt she'd earned the right to relax. What she didn't know was that her timing, her position, and her environment were creating the perfect storm for what doctors now call nap-induced metabolic disruption. The science is both fascinating and terrifying. When you nap incorrectly, you're not just affecting your sleep schedule. You're triggering a cascade of biological disasters. Your blood becomes sluggish, increasing clot risk by 300%. Your digestive system revolts, bathing your esophagus in acid that creates precancerous changes. Your brain chemistry shifts, accelerating the protein buildup associated with Alzheimer's disease. Your cardiovascular system struggles under the strain of disrupted circadian rhythms, leading to the kind of sudden cardiac events that claim 735,000 American lives every year. But here's the part that will make your blood run cold. Most seniors experiencing these changes have no idea anything is wrong. The symptoms masquerade as normal aging. A little more fatigue, some occasional heartburn, moments of confusion, difficulty sleeping at night. By the time the damage becomes obvious, it's often too late to reverse. Eleanor was lucky. Her collapse was dramatic enough to get immediate medical attention. The doctors discovered that her seemingly harmless napping routine had caused severe acid reflux that was slowly destroying her esophagus, circulation problems that had created multiple small blood clots, and sleep disruption so severe that her brain was literally shrinking. She was 3 months away from a stroke that would have left her permanently disabled. The haunting question is, how many seniors are walking around right now with these same ticking time bombs in their bodies, completely unaware that their daily rest is slowly killing them? If you're feeling a chill of recognition, if you're starting to connect the dots between your own napping habits and mysterious health issues you've been experiencing, then you need to hear every single word of what comes next. Because while Eleanor's story started as a medical nightmare, it has a miraculous ending. Once she learned the 5 deadly napping mistakes and how to correct them, her transformation was nothing short of remarkable. Before we dive into those life-saving details, I need to ask you to do something that could literally save your life or the life of someone you love. Hit that subscribe button right now and ring the notification bell. This information is too important to risk missing. And when you subscribe, you're not just supporting our channel, you're joining a community of seniors who refuse to accept decline as inevitable. Every subscription tells us that you want more life-saving content like this, and it gives us the motivation to keep fighting for your health and longevity. The next few minutes will reveal exactly which napping mistakes are putting your life at risk, and more importantly, the simple changes that could transform your daily rest from a health hazard into a fountain of youth. Eleanor's near-death experience became the catalyst for the most vibrant, healthy years of her life. Your transformation starts right now. The moment Frank Williams from Phoenix finished his last bite of that perfectly grilled turkey sandwich, something sinister began happening inside his body. The clock on his kitchen wall read 12:23 p.m., and like clockwork, Frank felt that familiar wave of drowsiness wash over him. His leather lazy boy beckoned from the living room, promising the same blissful escape it had provided for the past 15 years of his retirement. What Frank didn't know was that this daily ritual was slowly burning a hole through his esophagus while simultaneously stealing oxygen from his brain. The American lunch has become a weapon of mass destruction for seniors, and we're wielding it against ourselves every single day. That innocent turkey sandwich Frank savored contained enough sodium to supply a small village, processed bread that spiked his blood sugar like a rocket, and preservatives that turned his stomach into a chemical battlefield. When he collapsed into his recliner, just minutes later, gravity became his enemy instead of his ally. Here's what happens in those crucial first 30 minutes after you eat, and why lying down during this window is like lighting a fuse on a time bomb. Your stomach produces hydrochloric acid so powerful it could dissolve metal. Your pancreas floods your system with insulin to combat the sugar surge, and your liver kicks into overdrive, try to process the chemical cocktail you've just consumed. This isn't digestion, it's biological warfare, and your body needs every advantage it can get. But when you recline immediately after eating, you're essentially handicapping your body's natural defense systems. That acid that's supposed to stay safely contained in your stomach suddenly has a clear pathway to your esophagus, throat, and even your lungs. The medical term is gastroesophageal reflux disease, but what it really means is that you're slowly dissolving your own tissue from the inside out. Frank's story becomes even more tragic when you understand what was happening to his brain during those post-meal naps. When your digestive system is working overtime, it demands massive amounts of blood flow. When you're lying down, that blood flow becomes sluggish, depriving your brain of the oxygen it desperately needs. Frank was essentially suffocating his own mind one sandwich at a time, one nap at a time, one day at a time. The financial devastation was staggering. Frank's medicine cabinet looked like a pharmacy stuffed with prescription antacids, throat lozenges, and pain relievers. His monthly medication costs exceeded $1,200, and he was making bi-weekly visits to his primary care doctor and a gastroenterologist. His Medicare statements read like a horror novel with thousands of dollars in diagnostic tests, procedures, and treatments for what his doctors called age-related digestive issues. But Frank's real tragedy wasn't the money or even the physical pain. It was the slow, insidious way his post-meal napping was robbing him of his mental clarity. The reduced oxygen flow to his brain during those crucial digestive hours was creating what neurologists call silent cognitive decline. Frank was losing his sharpness, his memory, his ability to think clearly, and he attributed it all to normal aging. The truth was far more devastating. He was literally starving his brain of oxygen every single day. The turning point came when Frank's doctor asked him a simple question that changed everything. "Frank, when exactly do you take your afternoon nap?" When Frank described his immediate post-lunch routine, the pieces of the puzzle suddenly fell into place. The doctor's face grew grave as he explained that Frank's beloved napping ritual was slowly killing him from the inside out. The solution seemed almost too simple to be true. Wait just 1 hour after eating before lying down. Take a short walk around the house. Wash the dishes. Sort the mail. Do anything that kept him upright and moving while his body did the hard work of digestion. Frank was skeptical but desperate, and within 3 weeks, his entire world had changed. The chronic burning in his throat disappeared. His voice, which had been hoarse for months, returned to its full richness. His mental fog lifted like morning mist, revealing a clarity of thought he hadn't experienced in years. But perhaps most remarkably, his annual healthcare costs plummeted by over $8,000. Frank had discovered that the price of ignorance was far higher than the cost of knowledge. Today, Frank's post-lunch routine has become a source of pride rather than a pathway to destruction. He calls it his victory lap around the house, and it's become the foundation of the healthiest, most vibrant years of his life. Margaret Thompson thought she had earned the right to sleep as long as she wanted. After 40 years of waking up at 5 a.m. to teach third graders in Miami, retirement felt like a permission slip to finally rest without limits. Her daily 3-hour naps seemed like a reward for decades of service, a gentle surrender to the natural rhythm of aging. What Margaret didn't realize was that those extended afternoon escapes were systematically dismantling her mind, one neuron at a time. The cruelest irony of Margaret's story is that she was literally sleeping her way toward the very fate she feared most. As a lifelong educator, Margaret's greatest terror was losing her mental sharpness, becoming a burden to her family, forgetting the thousands of students whose lives she had touched. Yet every day, as she settled into her living room recliner for those marathon naps, she was accelerating the exact cognitive decline that haunted her nightmares. Here's the devastating truth about extended napping that the retirement industry doesn't want you to know. Your brain interprets long daytime sleep as practice for permanent shutdown. When you nap for more than an hour, you're not just resting, you're rehearsing for death. Harvard Medical School's landmark study revealed that seniors who regularly nap for 3 hours or more show the same brain changes as people in the early stages of dementia, even when they have no other symptoms. The biological mechanism is both fascinating and terrifying. During those extended naps, Margaret's brain was producing the same toxic proteins that accumulate in Alzheimer's patients. Her neural pathways were literally being rewired for dependency rather than independence. Each long nap was like a small stroke, killing brain cells that would never regenerate and creating gaps in her memory that would only widen with time. Margaret's wake-up call came in the most humiliating way possible. During her annual Medicare wellness visit, she failed the cognitive screening test for the first time in her life. She couldn't remember the date, couldn't recall 3 simple words after 5 minutes, and couldn't draw a clock face correctly. The woman who had taught hundreds of children to read was suddenly struggling with basic mental tasks that should have been automatic. Her daughter, a nurse in Orlando, was devastated. She had watched her brilliant mother slowly fade over the past year, attributing it to normal aging. But the test results forced a terrible recognition. Margaret wasn't just getting older, she was disappearing. The vibrant, sharp-witted woman who had commanded classrooms and inspired generations of students was vanishing into a fog of confusion and forgetfulness. The sleep study that followed revealed the full scope of the tragedy. Margaret's 3-hour naps weren't providing rest. They were providing destruction. Her brain scans showed the telltale signs of accelerated aging: shrinkage in the hippocampus, the brain's memory center, and reduced white matter. the neural highways that connect different brain regions. At 72, Margaret's brain looked like it belonged to someone a decade older. But the most heartbreaking discovery was that Margaret's need for those long naps wasn't natural aging at all. It was a symptom of multiple treatable conditions that had been masked by her assumption that exhaustion was inevitable. Like many Florida seniors, Margaret had developed severe vitamin D deficiency despite living in the Sunshine State, because she was spending her peak sunlight hours napping indoors with the curtains drawn. She also had undiagnosed sleep apnea, a condition that was fragmenting her nighttime sleep and creating the daytime fatigue that drove her to those destructive marathon naps. The transformation began when Margaret's sleep specialist introduced her to the concept of cognitive napping, strategic 20-minute rest periods designed to enhance rather than diminish brain function. These power naps, timed perfectly with her natural circadian rhythms, allowed her brain to clear toxins and consolidate memories without entering the dangerous deep sleep phases that were causing her cognitive decline. Margaret also reclaimed her sense of purpose. Instead of disappearing into her recliner for hours each day, she returned to volunteer tutoring at her local elementary school. She joined a book club that challenged her mind and reconnected her with the joy of learning. Most importantly, she began taking afternoon walks along Miami Beach, soaking up the vitamin D her body desperately needed while giving her brain the stimulation it craved. The results were nothing short of miraculous. Within 3 months, Margaret's cognitive tests showed a 40% improvement. Her memory sharpened, her confusion lifted, and her family watched in amazement as their beloved matriarch returned from the fog of extended napping. Her grandchildren, who had begun to worry about their grandmother's increasing confusion, suddenly found themselves with a sharp, engaged companion who could once again help with homework and share stories from her teaching days. Margaret's story proves that the line between healthy aging and cognitive decline isn't drawn by time. It's drawn by the choices we make every single day. Her 3-hour naps weren't rest. They were rehearsals for a diminished future that she ultimately refused to accept. Robert Hayes believed his favorite leather recliner was his reward for a lifetime of hard work under the brutal Texas sun. For 30 years, he had worked cattle ranches from Houston to San Antonio, his hands weathered by rope and heat, his back bent by decades of honest labor. That recliner represented everything he had earned: comfort, rest, and the right to put his feet up whenever he damn well pleased. What Robert didn't know was that his beloved chair was slowly transforming into his deathbed, one 3-hour nap at a time. The human body wasn't designed to spend hours in a semi-upright position, bent at unnatural angles while blood pools in the lower extremities like stagnant water in a forgotten pond. Robert's daily ritual of collapsing into that recliner after lunch was turning his circulatory system into a network of slow-moving rivers, perfect breeding grounds for the silent killers that claim 25,000 American lives every year: blood clots. Every minute Robert spent motionless in that chair, his blood was thickening, his circulation slowing, his body preparing for the cardiovascular catastrophe that would eventually arrive on a sweltering Tuesday afternoon in July. The leather that had once felt like luxury against his skin was actually creating a perfect storm of heat and immobility, while his bent knees acted like dams, impeding the return flow of blood to his heart. The tragedy of Robert's story isn't just medical, it's deeply personal. This was a man who had spent his entire life in motion, working from sunrise to sunset, his body a finely tuned machine built for endurance and strength. Yet retirement had transformed him from a man of action into a prisoner of comfort, trading his vitality for the seductive embrace of that recliner. Each day, as he settled into its familiar contours, he was unknowingly surrendering more of his independence, more of his strength, more of his life. The warning signs were subtle at first, easily dismissed as the natural consequences of aging. Robert's legs would swell by evening, a condition he attributed to the Texas heat. He experienced occasional chest tightness that he blamed on too much barbecue. His shortness of breath when climbing stairs seemed like a reasonable response to being 74 years old. But these weren't signs of normal aging. They were his body's desperate attempts to warn him that something was going catastrophically wrong. Dorothy Martinez was facing her own version of this same tragedy, though hers played out in the rarefied air of Denver, Colorado. Her enemy wasn't a recliner, but timing, and her weapon of choice was the seemingly innocent 6:30 p.m. post-dinner nap that was systematically destroying her ability to sleep through the night. What Dorothy didn't understand was that her evening rest was stealing sleep from her future self, creating a vicious cycle that was slowly driving her toward isolation and despair. The human sleep cycle operates on a delicate balance of biological pressures and hormonal rhythms that have evolved over millions of years. When Dorothy napped at 6:30 p.m., just hours before her intended bedtime, she was essentially spending her sleep currency during the day and leaving herself bankrupt when night fell. Her body's natural production of melatonin, the hormone that signals sleepiness, was being disrupted by her poorly timed naps, leaving her staring at the ceiling until 2 a.m. while her mind raced with worry and regret. The social cost of Dorothy's sleep disruption was devastating. She stopped joining her morning walks with friends because she was too exhausted to function. She declined invitations to her grandchildren's school events because she couldn't trust herself to drive safely on so little sleep. Her family watched helplessly as their once vibrant matriarch withdrew into herself, becoming increasingly anxious and depressed as her world grew smaller and smaller. The moment of truth came for Robert when his body finally rebelled against years of circulatory abuse. The chest pain that struck him that July afternoon wasn't subtle or dismissive. It was his body's final, desperate scream for help. When the paramedics rushed him to Houston Methodist Hospital, doctors discovered that his beloved recliner had nearly become his tomb. Multiple blood clots had formed his legs, and one had broken free, traveling through his bloodstream like a guided missile aimed directly at his lungs. Dorothy's awakening was less dramatic, but equally profound. When she finally mentioned her sleep struggles to her doctor, the diagnosis was swift and devastating. Her evening naps were destroying her natural sleep architecture, leaving her chronically exhausted despite spending more hours in bed than ever before. The mile-high city's unique altitude was amplifying the problem, making her sleep disruption even more severe. Both Robert and Dorothy discovered that their salvation lay not in abandoning rest, but in respecting the profound science of when, where, and how long to rest. Robert learned to honor his body's need for circulation by moving his naps to his bedroom, lying flat, and limiting them to 20 minutes. Dorothy discovered that shifting her nap to 1:30 p.m. transformed her evenings from battles with insomnia into peaceful surrenders to natural sleep. Their stories remind us that comfort without wisdom is just another form of suffering. George Patterson had served his country with honor for 20 years, navigating fighter jets through hostile skies and leading men through impossible missions. Yet the enemy that nearly destroyed him wasn't foreign or armed. It was his own living room. After decades of military precision, George had unknowingly created a rest environment so hostile to human health that it was slowly poisoning his body while he slept. The modern American home has become a battlefield where our bodies fight a losing war against the very spaces we've designed for comfort. George's living room was a perfect example of this domestic warfare. LED lights blazing with the intensity of an operating theater, the television broadcasting a constant stream of stress-inducing news, the thermostat set to 76 degrees to save money, and a leather recliner that had molded itself to his body's aches and pains over the years. What George thought was his sanctuary was actually a torture chamber disguised as comfort. Every element of George's napping environment was working against his body's desperate attempts to heal and restore itself. The bright lights were suppressing his melatonin production, telling his brain to stay alert when it should have been preparing for rest. The television's constant chatter was fragmenting his sleep cycles, preventing his mind from reaching the deeper stages of rest where true restoration occurs. The warm temperature was forcing his cardiovascular system to work overtime, trying to cool his body when it should have been slowing down. The unsupportive chair was compressing his nerves and restricting his circulation, turning what should have been healing rest into a slow-motion assault on his musculoskeletal system. The cumulative effect was devastating. George woke from his naps feeling more exhausted than when he lay down, his neck and shoulders screaming in pain, his mind foggy and confused. He had become dependent on multiple cups of coffee just to function after his supposed rest. And his family watched in dismay as their once sharp patriarch became increasingly irritable and withdrawn. The man who had commanded respect and attention was slowly disappearing into a haze of chronic fatigue and mounting physical discomfort. What made George's story particularly tragic was that he approached his rest with the same lackadaisical attitude he would never have tolerated in his military service. The same man who had meticulously planned every mission detail, who had understood that environment could mean the difference between life and death, was completely ignoring the hostile conditions he had created for his own recovery. His precision and attention to detail had been replaced by a dangerous assumption that comfort and health were the same thing. The transformation began when George decided to apply military discipline to his civilian health challenges. Through the Veterans Affairs system, he consulted with a sleep specialist who immediately recognized the environmental warfare being waged against George's body. The doctor's assessment was blunt. "George, you're trying to rest in an environment designed to keep you awake and in pain. No wonder you're not recovering." George's environmental overhaul became a mission with the same intensity and precision he had once brought to military operations. He installed blackout curtains that transformed his bedroom into a cave-like sanctuary, purchased a white noise machine that masked the constant hum of Atlanta traffic, and invested in a programmable thermostat that automatically cooled his home to 68 degrees during nap time. Most importantly, he moved his naps from the chaotic living room to his bedroom, creating a dedicated space for healing that was dark, quiet, and cool. The results were swift and dramatic. Within 3 weeks, George's chronic fatigue evaporated like morning mist. His neck and shoulder pain disappeared, eliminating his need for regular chiropractic visits and pain medications. His mental clarity returned with the sharpness of a laser, and his family watched in amazement as their beloved patriarch emerged from the fog of environmental toxicity. But perhaps most remarkably, George's healthcare costs plummeted by nearly $3,000 annually. His transformation proved that the most expensive healthcare is often the kind you need when you ignore the simple environmental factors that support healing. George had discovered that treating his symptoms cost thousands, while creating an environment that prevented those symptoms cost hundreds. Today, George approaches his rest with the same strategic thinking he once brought to military missions. He understands that his environment is either supporting his health or undermining it, and he refuses to accept anything less than optimal conditions for his recovery. His bedroom has become his command center for health, a precisely calibrated space where his body can perform the crucial work of restoration and renewal. George's story reminds us that healing isn't passive. It's an active choice we make every day about the environments we create for ourselves. The stories of Eleanor, Frank, Margaret, Robert, Dorothy, and George aren't just individual tales of near tragedy and triumph. They're mirrors reflecting a silent epidemic sweeping across America. Each of these remarkable people thought they were simply resting, but they were actually engaged in a daily battle between life and death, vitality and decline, independence and dependence. Their experiences reveal a profound truth that challenges everything we've been taught about aging. Decline isn't inevitable, it's optional. What connects all these stories is the dangerous myth that growing older means surrendering control over our health and vitality. We've been conditioned to believe that fatigue, pain, confusion, and physical deterioration are natural consequences of aging, when in reality, they're often the predictable results of habits we can change starting today. Eleanor's collapse, Frank's acid reflux, Margaret's cognitive decline, Robert's blood clots, Dorothy's insomnia, and George's chronic pain weren't caused by the passage of time. They were caused by choices that seemed harmless but were actually deadly. The deeper lesson here transcends napping and touches the very core of how we approach our later years. Every single day, in countless small moments, we're either moving toward greater health and vitality or away from it. There are no neutral choices. When we nap immediately after eating, we're choosing digestive destruction over digestive health. When we nap for hours, we're choosing cognitive decline over mental sharpness. When we nap in hostile environments, we're choosing deterioration over restoration. But here's the empowering truth that changes everything. The same small choices that were slowly killing our heroes became the foundation for the most vibrant, healthy years of their lives. The power to transform your health doesn't lie in expensive treatments or complex medical interventions. It lies in the wisdom to make better choices about the simple, daily habits that either support or undermine your body's incredible capacity for healing and renewal. The lesson for your life today is both simple and profound. Start paying attention to the environment you're creating for your own healing. Look at your napping habits, your rest environment, your daily rhythms with the same careful consideration you'd give to any important decision. Ask yourself whether each choice is moving you toward the vital, independent future you want or away from it. Your transformation begins with your very next nap, and the compound effects of that single better choice will ripple through every aspect of your health and happiness for years to come. Now, I'd love to hear from you. What's the one napping habit you're most ready to change after watching this video? Share your thoughts in the comments below so we can all learn from each other's experiences and support one another on this journey to better health. If this video has opened your eyes to the life-changing power of better napping habits, please subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. Your support helps us continue creating content that can literally save lives and transform the way America thinks about aging and health. Together, we're proving that our best years don't have to be behind us. They could be ahead of us.